Hello everybody, welcome back. We're doing a pizza dough box today, or bread making box. You can see there's my pizza oven in the background there. I bake bread and pizza, so I needed a dough box, and this is what artisanal bakeries and bakers have used for years and years, back to the Roman times. So we're going to pick up some lumber. What I'm looking for is Douglas fir. That's what I'll be making it out of. And this is edge grain. There's a piece of 1 by 8 by 14 feet long, so we'll chop it all out of this. There's a couple of knots in it that we'll take out. I'll use this piece here, it has a couple of really tight knots. They're just a little burl knot in there, so we'll go with that. But you can see the grain is actually quite nice. And like I was saying, this is a edge grain. I didn't want any sap or anything on the inside of the box because it will have water and flour in it. And we've cut out the knots, and we've got them cut to size here in the lengths. So this is our block sizing. You can see they're quite nice. We'll just take them over and joint the edge, and then run them through the table saw to make sure that they're all the same width. There we are, just taking off the rough cut on the side. Now that I've got them jointed, I've marked them out for biscuits, and I'll be putting a number 20 biscuit in them. And I like to use a table with a backer board on it whenever I run my biscuit machine into it. That's a good common practice to get into. I see an awful lot of people on YouTube just hanging on to the board and with their fingers in the front and plunging it into it. This way is a lot safer. And we'll just glue this edge and glue the biscuits and mount these two boards together and let them dry for a couple hours, and then we'll give them a sand up. And this is our base for our bread box. And this will be 16 by 24. It's a little bit longer. I'll cut it to size as we go along. But I like to get lots of glue in these biscuits, and there's a couple of them that we've missed there, so we'll just touch those up. And the glue that I'm using is Type Bond 3. There will be moisture in this because when you're making bread, artisan style bread, you'll be adding the yeast and the salt and the water. I'll be doing a video in the future showing this in use and mixing the dough and using the bread box. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. You can follow along, and we have some neat videos coming up. I'll be making some pizzas and in the wood-fired oven. I have a large wood-fired oven that I make bread and pizza and other stuff with, so we'll be adding that to this station as well. So we're just pounding that together, and then we'll go over and find some clamps and clamp it together. We're just using bar clamps, and we'll put one on top and just make sure it's nice and flat. That's what's nice about the bar clamps. When you put them on, you can use them as a straight edge and see if there's a gap or a warp or anything on the top. So here's our angle finders. I've got a couple of them. Here's one that I use quite often on the chop saw, and there's a traditional protractor. And so what we're setting the blade at is 25 degrees. We want the angles of the box to come in 25 degrees. So I've changed my fence on the saw, moved it to the outside, and we're cutting these 25 degrees. And that'll be the top of the board and the bottom of the board lengthwise. And you want them to go the same angle. So don't turn your boards around if you're going to build one of these. You follow through. They have to be going the same way because you want it to lean out. You can see the angles there. These delta saws are great. The fence on them, that you can go from right to left with your fence, and because when you're cutting angles, it's always good to have the waste not jam between the fence and the blade, but to fall away. So what I'm showing you here is just I've done some tests to make sure that all the joints go together. Bit of a pattern. Anything I make, I always use a piece of scrap first to check all my angles, make sure everything's right. So here they are, all block size. The ends are all cut at 25 degrees too, and it'll be a butt joint, and we'll be using 1/2-inch dowels into it. But whenever you're doing a butt joint like this, it's not a compound miter, but you still have to compound the ends of the boards. And because we're splitting into two from side to side, that's going to be 12.5 degrees. So you have to follow the 25 and then bring it in 12.5 degrees on both ends. And that's so when you meet on the corners, that'll give you your 25-degree angle. I'm not going to go into all the geometry of it, but so we're just going to set up the boards. So we've done those cuts on the ends, and you can see where they're beveled a bit. But like I said, it will be a butt joint on the ends, but you still have to do, it's basically called a planing cut. So we ran them through the sander, and then we're going to knock them down. We're only going to go to 120 on bread boxes and stuff. You don't want it really fine. You want it a bit coarse so they'll grab the dough whenever you're kneading it. In Italy, the certified pasta makers have to make all their pasta on a wood board, and it can't be sanded more than 120, and that's so it gives it a coarseness to the pasta and stuff. And it's the same with these bread boards. If you figure that these bread boxes were done in ancient times, so if we sand them in 120, we're probably 100 times smoother than they were. I like my little, somebody sent me this holder, and it's got a piece of crepe in the bottom of it, and you can just place your sander in there. You don't have to turn your sander off and on. It sits in there and it cleans the bottom of the orbital sanders as you're going around. This is a great tool to have in the shop. It keeps me, I probably get about 4 times as long out of the sandpaper, because the crepe that's in the bottom of that dish really keeps the paper nice and clean. So I'm just following along on all the edges, making sure there's no real rough marks. And we'll do that to all the boards and do an inspection, and then we'll do a dry fit to make sure everything fits up right. I'm just showing you the name of this product. I'm tickled with it. It's a handy thing. So we put it in a square frame so we can mount the box, and you can see that I've cut on the inside of the box there. We have a couple of pieces of wood that have been nailed together, and they're at 25 degrees, so they'll hold up the boards. I'm using a 1/2-inch dowel. So I'm just marking the placement of it, and we'll follow down with that, cutting the dowels out on the bandsaw. If you cut a lot of dowels yourself, the bandsaw is the safest and easiest way to do it. Chop saws seem to throw them across the room or bounce them off your forehead. And so I'll put glue in one in each corner, and what I'm using is pocket screws on top and bottom, and this is just a temporary to hold it in place until the dowels are installed. You can see that I laid in my mark there, and we'll glue these, and these are about 1.25 inches, so we'll pound them right through and in, and these will sit for about 2 hours until the glue gets hard, and then I can pop out the screws and then continue with the rest of them. Like I said, these screws are just temporary, just to hold the pieces together. And I like using the pocket screws because they have that washer head on them. So here's the base, and I'm just cutting off the waste here on my slider. And you can see I've marked out the inside. I've laid the box over the top and marked out where it's going. So this is called a planing board. We use it a lot in woodworking. It's used in automotive, for fairing out wood. A lot of fiberglassers use it for fairing out epoxy and resins and stuff. But I use it a lot in the shop, and all it is a 1/2-inch piece of maple, and then a 2x2 on top. There's no screws or anything in the bottom of it. The top is just glued on, and then use a full wrap of sanding paper on it. It's cloth back sanding paper, so if you're wanting to make a long one of these, buy the longest belt that you can find, and then just cut it in half, and then and that's put down with two-sided tape, thin tape, and then I just wrap it around and put a couple of staples on the end of it. I've had this for probably 10 years and use it all the time. So what I'm doing is just sanding to make sure that the bottom, this is the base that'll be going on. I want this perfectly flat. You can see I've laid it all out. So there's the base, and that goes on. And I put a reference mark there where it goes. And I've drawn out the square. And you can see how it sits down on top. And it didn't take much sanding. I like to take my time when I'm laying the joints together. And once we have that in place, we'll just measure all the outside, and just double check everything before you start drilling dowels. So this box, there's no screws in it, there's no nails in it. All it is biscuit jointed and dowels, all held together by dowels and biscuits. Biscuits in the bottoms, and the top is all dowels, and then we'll dowel it to the base, and that's to allow for movement. And I didn't want any hardware in it that may rust in the future or have any contamination in it. So it's all wood. It's done as if it was done 200 years ago, actually 2,000 years ago. But so these are 3/8 of an inch dowels, and the drill I'm using is a point drill bit. And it's great for placing the dowels because you put the drill bit in exactly where you want it. You see I've marked the inside of the box where it's going down, and then I came over a 1/2-inch mark, and I've marked that all the way around the outside. And I like to put down tape on the bottom. And these are dowel points. I've had these for a lot of years. A lot of people have seen me use these and remarked on them. So I'll start off with 4, then I'll lay that down, and I'll just follow my reference marks. Once I decide where I want it, then I'll just give it a tap. And I'm careful not to do them all at once. And what I'll do is just put in 4, and then I'll put a couple of dowels in, and I'll put small dowels in, like I'll make them quite short so that I can fit the box over top of it. So there I am, just giving it a bit of a tap, and you'll see where it pierces the tape. And if I didn't have the tape there, it's a lot harder to find the holes, but and then what I'll do is I'll drill those, and I've got a mark on my bit with a piece of tape on it and how deep I want to go. And on these ones here, I'm just going to cut them down to a 1/4 of an inch. And so I have, and those are basically reference. So whenever I put my box down now, I'll drop down on top of those 2 dowels. And every time I pick it up and down, I'll have a reference mark, a reference pin that'll go down the same spot. So we've got them all done now, and we've done them all the way around. I'm just putting my brad points away. These are great. If you don't have these and you do a lot of dowel work and stuff, I've had these for probably 30 years, and they are really, really great. So I've tapped them all in. They're glued. I only want them to come up with an inch into the bottom board. So we used a couple of pieces of plywood. I'll go all the way along so they're the same length, and we'll just cut them all off. And this guarantees me that we're not going to have one that's too long or whatever. And so we'll go all the way along and make sure that every one is cut off the same height. These little Japanese saws work great for this, on the Japanese trim saws. So we had them all cut off, and then we've dropped our box on. We'll just give it a tap, make sure that's all in, and do it from the top. Don't flip it over and do it from the bottom, because you want to make sure, staring down at the bottom, that you are set in, and all the way down. And you can see what you're seeing isn't a joint. I've just sanded the edge a bit, so that's just a shadow mark, and it's the pencil line that I had in there. I'll just give that another tap again, and then we'll put some weight on that, and they'll set for 3 or 4 hours before we do any more work on it. And then what we'll do is just once that gets, I'm just double checking it to make sure it hasn't moved or anything. I've seen them use these in Italy when they're making pasta, and then what they do is they'll just flip the box over and they roll everything and do all their cutting on the bottom of the box. So it's actually used as a work surface too when you turn it upside down. You can see the big dowels in the end there. So there's 3 1/2-inch dowels along each joint, and they're glued in. And just go along, making sure it's all tapped down. And then we'll get some weight, and we'll get a couple of cans of paint. And just double checking it underneath to make sure that there's no gaps in it. You want to take your time when you're doing this. Once that glue sets, if you had to bring it up, or if it wasn't down in one end or corner or something, you'd end up destroying the box. So it's good to take your time. And I'll get some weight on it and just make sure that it's pushed down. And once that glue sets, it'll get in there and just bond everything together. And then I'll give it a hand sand. I'll go along and give it a nice hand sand. What I plan on doing too is just oiling the outside of it. I'll give it a couple coats of oil and a coat of wax. I use mineral oil, just straight mineral oil, and beeswax mixed in with the mineral oil, so there's no contaminants in it or anything. But the inside of the box will be left natural. So here I am just giving an airs on the end. I'll just follow through and give this a hand sand and make sure that it's all nice and smooth on the outside. And like I was saying earlier, the outside will just be oiled, nothing on the inside. You want to build up a natural yeast on the inside of the box. The box will never get soaped or cleaned or anything. After you make the dough in these boxes, you just brush out the flour. And the original seal, we dump warm water into them, and flaxseed, and the flaxseed or flour will go into the joints and swell up. It's just like sealing off a boat. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Well, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and buy me a coffee. Everything is appreciated. We have some great videos coming up for you. And if you haven't seen any of our other videos, please go down through them and check them out. I'll leave you with some pictures of the completed box. And in the background there, you can see we have a fire going in our pizza oven. Thank you once again.